A very good morning to one and all, and welcome to Day 2 of the National Conference on Making Higher Education Accessible and Available 2022. The first session for today, Session 3, will focus on the theme, From Rights to Responsibilities. The goal of the session is to understand the importance of students developing a deeper understanding of their roles and responsibilities to build sustainable societies that are progressive and equitable. We are honored to have with us today Mrs. Smriti Rekha Adinarayanan, co-founder of the Anadi Foundation. Ms. Gitanjali JB, co-founder, Himalayan Institute of Alternatives. Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi, Executive Director, Karnataka State Higher Education Council. Representing the Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence, we have Mr. B.N. Narasimhamurthy, Chancellor. And Dr. Sri Kantamurthy, Vice Chancellor of the University. We will begin the session with a special video message from Dr. Neil Hawkes, the founder of the International Values-Based Education Trust based in the UK. Dr. Neil Hawkes is an educator, motivational speaker, broadcaster, writer, and social commentator who founded the trust. Dr. Neil's passion is to transform education so that it integrates sustainable values within the context of quality basic education. His enthusiasm is based on his research and practical experience as a head teacher, advisor, consultant to thousands of schools worldwide. Dr. Neil unfortunately could not travel from the UK to be with us here today, but he sends his best wishes in the form of a video message touching upon the topic, adopting a values-based approach in higher education to build a sustainable society. May we have the video, please?
Your Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, it is a real honor to have been invited to speak at your conference. I am so sorry that I can't be there in person to talk with you today. Nevertheless, I'm so delighted that I have just a few moments to address you. We are all aware that we live in very challenging times, dangerous times, in fact, for humanity. We are all too familiar with the problems that we face: climate change, ecosystem collapse, the denigration of social systems, huge problems in structures, and all the routines that human beings are engaged in. All these seem to be in a state of flux and degeneration. This has been going on for a long time, throughout my lifetime, but humanity collectively has not woken up really to being able to solve the problems. We are stuck in an old paradigm, a paradigm of continual improvement, trying to materially get more and more things. But my journey of life has taught me that we do need basic things such as water, food, shelter, and some luxuries. Yes, there's no evil in that. But when we have excess, when we seek constantly to have more and more, then we cannot sustain that over a planet. Some peoples are rightly cross, annoyed, angry, because in their part of the world, they haven't been allowed to have what many of us in other parts of the world have enjoyed. So they say, why not us? And those who have been in rich nations want to continue as they are. So fairness is a huge question. that we have. I believe that each one of us needs to wake up. Do you remember the words of Eckhart Tolle, which I commend to you? Eckhart said that there are so many myths in our world that we culturally buy into. One of those myths is that we are our brain. We are our brain. So whatever the brain thinks is right, and we should follow that. And that develops ego, and our ego then runs ourselves. He said that's complete myth. This can be proved, can't it, in meditation, when you can become the loving onlooker of what's going on inside your brain. And that is the key to actually being awake, aware. Why did I think like that? Why did I react to that person in the way I did? Have I got an aspect of character that developed very early on in my life? Am I just a product of my culture, my religion, my family, my everything, my schooling? Am I able to stand back from all those things and be the objective observer, saying, yes, I really need to look at all aspects of myself in a loving, caring way? That is what a values-based organization does. Being values-based means that you are using universal human values, all the ones that we celebrate: cooperation, trust, harmony. All these wonderful words lead us to live our lives in an open, honest, and authentic way. We're able to have what I call a super value, which is altruism. Altruism is living your life for the good of others, not just yourself, but being able to have wise selfishness. That's an odd word for me to use, isn't it? Selfishness. But wise selfishness, as the Dalai Lama once said, leads you to really think about how you can nurture and care, especially for your internal world, so that you then can be more useful to other people. So we have a challenge. The challenge is how we wake up the population. Last year, I wrote a paper with a colleague of mine in the United States, Professor Marco, and we wrote it for the V20 Summit, the Values 20 Summit, which is a collection of those of us around the world who are passionate about values. And we wrote a paper for the G20 Summit leaders. And our paper was all about how we can bring ethics center stage into people's lives, particularly how we can encourage leaders of the world to be ethics-based. How can we enable them to think clearly from an ethics point of view? We have the specter of artificial intelligence. I do worry about this from the point of view is asking the question, who is programming the artificial intelligence? Are they people who are awake and are values-based and are looking to enable humanity? People who are aware of unintended consequences of their actions. There's so much in my life I've done, and I think, oh, if I'd only really thought more clearly, I wouldn't have done it because I wasn't aware of the unintended consequences of my actions. So leadership needs a special sort of intelligence, an intelligence that I've been talking about for a long time, and that is ethical intelligence. Ethical intelligence is the ability to ethically self-regulate your own behavior. Ethically self-regulate your own behavior. Just imagine our world if we all could ethically self-regulate our behavior. If the leaders of the world, as I put in the paper, if they want to achieve the United Nations sustainable goals, then they need to act from ethical intelligence. So think about yourself, because we can all think about the leaders of the world and people we think should be doing things. But change always begins with the self. As Gandhi said, and I paraphrase, we must be the change we want to see in the world. And if we do that, if we model authentically the values, then the change can happen. As many of you will know, I'm passionate about values-based education. Our education systems around the world, again, buy into a myth. The myth is about exam passing and accumulating lots of knowledge, which enables you to be fodder for the system that runs the economy. Instead, yes, those things are important, of course, the economy, but there is something even more important, and that is the character development of human beings. And values-based schools develop that character in children. So I am actually full of hope for humanity. We have these enormous problems, but if each one of you listening to me today starts to make the change, and I know you are, but if you turn up the volume of being the change, don't look for others. Be the change you want to see in the world. And together, we can ensure that humanity flourishes for our future. And not only humanity, this wonderful planet, its ecosystems, the beauty of the world. As I've seen our world over my lifetime, it just fills me with awe and wonder. And I want to ensure that it exists for future generations. That's our challenge, colleagues. So in your conference, think about values for children, young people, adults, everybody, because it's the values that lead to the choices we make in life, that leads to the development of the mindset and the narrative that we use, that leads to our personality and eventually leads to our destiny and the legacy that we will leave behind. What legacy are you leaving behind you? Thank you for listening to me. Thank you all for all that you do in the world to make our world a much more human-friendly, animal-friendly, plant-friendly place. Thank you all so much.
Our next speaker is Mrs. Smriti Rekha Adinarayanan. Mrs. Smriti is the co-founder of the Anadi Foundation. She was formerly an EdTech and cognitive science researcher at Create Labs and a faculty member of computer science and engineering at Amrita University. At Anadi Foundation, she devotes her time to design transformative programs that blend yoga, meditation, cognitive science, and modern psychology to enhance the quality of the teaching and learning process. These programs have reached over 5,000 students and 1,000 teachers. Deeply interested in the cause of ecology and sustainability, Mrs. Smriti also works with youth in making them more conscious of their interactions with nature and helps them cultivate an integrated worldview which connects man, society, and the environment. She will speak on the topic, Moulding Students to Share the Responsibility of Creating Sustainable Societies. Mrs. Smriti, please.
Namaste to one and all present here. Let us begin with a small invocation. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This simple invocation is very holistic in the sense that it conveys the message of sustainability, because it's very, very inclusive in nature. When we say Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Shantir Bhavatu, Purnam Bhavatu, we automatically include not just ourselves, but the entire world, including all living beings and all things around us. So this inclusivity and sustainability has been the heart of Sanatana Dharma, or the Dharmic worldview. But unfortunately, due to whatever reasons, our educational process or our life process itself has become quite exclusive, where we've started thinking only about ourselves, our well-being, or our own growth, our own material well-being, and such things. But in today's time, we do see that there is a huge crisis in terms of economic crisis, ecological crisis. There's a health crisis that we are all currently part of as well. And we need more and more indigenous solutions to be able to solve this, more sustainable solutions to be able to solve this. World over, if you see, whether it is Latin America or some parts of Europe, the Asian countries, there is a lot of effort that is going on to go back to one's roots. People are seeing, what did our ancients do? What can we take from there in order to solve problems of today's society? And what is the problem with not leading a sustainable life? When we say sustainability, the closest word probably in our Sanatana Dharma is the word dharma itself. Dharma has a lot of meanings. It is a polysemic word and it can be used in different contexts. It can be used in the sense of ethics, responsibility, duty, religion, one's own responsibility to the society. But the fundamental meaning, when we say dhru, it means to sustain. The root word dhru itself means to sustain. So when we say dharma or dharmic, that itself means to sustain or focusing on sustainability. So that is how core it is to our culture. When we say loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, it means that the entire world that I am also part of, let there be peace and harmony in all these things. But with the lack of sustainable worldview, what can really happen and what is currently happening, especially with the young population? There is a certain distancing that is happening. Say, for instance, many young people are not aware of what is the source of food that we use or that we consume. Or after we consume, what happens to the waste that we generate, right? For many children who grow up in urban areas in many countries abroad, they would think that milk probably comes from the supermarket or rice grows on a tree, right? They don't have access to farms or fields. They don't have access to cows for that matter. And that there is a certain distancing because they think that everything is coming through an industrial process. And they're not aware of, they throw garbage here. They're not aware of where exactly it is growing. So in fact, in one of our programs, which is to do with awakening the youth on sustainable development, we take them to garbage dumps because that is where they really see what happens to the waste that they generate. They become more conscious after that. The other thing that happens because of this lack of sustainable worldview is that thinking of the nature or everything around us as a mechanized system, whether it is to do with health, whether it is to do with our own body, or whether it is to do with nature, we think it's a mechanical system which lacks consciousness. That is something that is unfortunately happening. We consider nature to be a resource that we can plunder for our own benefits. But if we flip that worldview a little bit, when we say Sanatana Dharma, what is the fundamental aspect of Sanatana Dharma, whether it is any of the Darshana Shastras, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, Vedanta, or any of these Darshana Shastras, the Atman is the core that connects everything. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, Bhagavan Sri Krishna talks about what is Sattvika knowledge, what is Rajasika knowledge, and what is Tamasika knowledge. He says, when we see the fundamental interconnected principle in everything without actually focusing on the differences, that is called Sattvika knowledge. The moment we start focusing on the differences, saying that is a tree, this is a human, this is a chair, this is me, this is somebody else, that is called Rajasika knowledge. Nothing wrong with that. In a Vyavaharik world, in a very practical sense, we need to be mindful of the differences. But when there is no reasoning behind that, when we don't understand the fundamental tattva of life itself, that is called Tamasika knowledge. How life works in this reality. Without understanding that, when we lead our lives, then that is Tamasika knowledge. Unfortunately, most of modern education that we all have been part of, or many of them are currently going through, with this institution being an exception, and many such ashramas and Bharatiya places, many people go through this educational process where they see only differences. They see only the diversity that is existing around them, but not the unifying principle. The moment one gets a glimpse of the unifying principle, the moment one gets Atma Darshana, then one sees what is inside of oneself is what is outside of oneself. What is present in a human system is what is present in a tree, what is present in an animal. And that is what governs the entire reality, that is what governs the entire universe. One bows down to that divine principle, then it becomes difficult to harm anything. It becomes difficult to exploit anything for one's own benefit. Because we are part of it, that is part of us. We are all coexisting in such an ecosystem. So that fundamental worldview needs to be flipped. I was talking to a person who's practicing agriculture in a very, very natural manner. So I was talking to that lady, and I was telling her that it's important that children learn the principles of, say, Indian medicine, to do with the human body, to do with the animal body, to do with the plant body, so that whenever any disease occurs, they are able to prepare some medicines and then utilize it. And in fact, she shared that, you can go even more fundamental. She said that if a plant gets a disease, or if pests are attacking the plants, one need not panic. One need not administer a medicine immediately. All that one needs to do is create enough diversity in the planting process such that the pests also have 25% of the output and the 75% is available for human consumption. So you plant the plants in such a way that the pests can be redirected to some other flowers or some other plants. You still have your share of agricultural output. The pests also have their own share. So basically, when the worldview flips, if we think that pests are something which are sort of competing with the useful plants, then we would automatically go and put a chemical fertilizer on top of it. But if we see that they are also contributing to the growth in a certain way, they are also cooperating in a certain way, they have their own life, they have their own cycle, probably they would be there for a week or so. After that, eventually, once their job is done, they would leave. When the worldview flips that way to a cooperating system, then our actions automatically change. And when the youth are awakened to such cooperating systems, be it agriculture, be it healthcare, be it economics, or even simple livelihood for that matter, then they would not see each other as competing beings, not as competing fellows, but rather there is a possibility to collaborate, cooperate, and achieve greater things in this world. And there is also this new research that is happening on what is called the planetary boundaries. And people are, sort of understanding that we have crossed many of these planetary boundaries. be it to do with the ocean systems or be it to do with atmosphere, the ozone layer, and many such things. Of course, there are diversity of worldviews with respect to that as well. But just that becoming conscious of that, understanding how how we consume resources, that can really transform. So what we did at Anadi Foundation was we started this program called Anadi Sustainability Awareness for the Young SA program, where we brought forth the sustainable development goals for the young people, together with understanding indigenous ecological practices. More often what happens is that youth from the urban areas, they go to the rural areas in order to transform the rural areas, because we often think that the rural areas are undergoing a lot of suffering, we must transform them. But a good component of spending time in the rural areas is also to understand the best practices from there, what we lack in the urban areas. There's so much wealth of knowledge that is available in rural areas, tribal areas, and the interior pockets of the country. We can truly solve the ecological problems or sustainability problems of the country and the world as such. So when young people are taken to the villages to not just serve there, they can also be taken to learn some good practices, good ecological practices, indigenous practices with respect to healthcare or whatever it is. Those can be modeled or those can be made available in the urban areas to transform the place. And the sustainable, what we did in the SA program is typically this. So they get an awareness about the SDGs, they spend good amount of time in the rural areas, learn about the solutions from the rural areas, and also explore solutions. And personally, we at Anadi Foundation, many of us are technologists as well. We often advocate the use of science and technological solutions as well. When we say science and technology, not just modern science and technology. It could come from any of the ancient practices as well. So that is where personally we found that, at our ashram, we found that cows play a very significant role at the center of sustainable practices. We've integrated the Goshala in such a way that we've eliminated the usage of LPG. We cook with, say, cow dung-based fuel, cow dung-based logs. And we also do Nitya Agnihotra or Agni Kriya as we call it. And the ash that is there, one thing is we apply, one thing is we consume. We also sprinkle it to the plants. And we see magically the plants start flowering. And we use Panchagavyam, Jeevamritam. So basically our agricultural needs, our cooking needs, and eventually, very soon, even our construction needs will be taken care through products that come from the cow. That is why cows have been given such high importance in our culture. Gomata has been treated more than humans in our culture. Because the Gomata basically takes care of all our needs. All the Purusharthas can be taken care of. And especially the Gurukulam children, they spend a lot of time with cows. And we see that many of the diseases that they have, illnesses that they have, be it skin illness or be it the imbalance of the doshas, that are immediately taken care of when they work with these cows and also the cow products. And inherently, cows are very, very sattvic in nature. So being with the cows really transforms our personality. So the message for the youth through what I want to convey in this session is that reflect on yourself. Spend some time understanding yourself, what we call adhyatma, through meditation, sadhana, bhajans, japa, whatever is available. And when you understand yourself, you start understanding the ecosystem around you as well. And your actions become more conscious, become more mindful, become more inclusive in that sense. And then when you take action in the society, based on whatever insights you derive, whatever is based on indigenous practices, whatever is based on our Vedic insights, then the society starts to transform. And you can truly discover sustainable solutions, not just in ecology. Economic sustainability can be done. Healthcare sustainability can be done. Even educational sustainability and self-reliance can be brought out. So with this, I thank the organizers for the opportunity that is given. And we hope that more and more young people will be benefited through this educational ecosystem and will contribute to the development of the country and the entire world as such. Namaste.
Thank you, Mrs. Smriti. It was very beautiful how you shared that sustainability has always been a part of, our indigenous wisdom that this land has. Our next speaker is Ms. Geetanjali JB. Ms. Geetanjali is a multi-talented, multifaceted personality with experience in entrepreneurship, fine arts, and even martial arts. Having spent a considerable amount of time in the education sector, Ms. Geetanjali felt that a lot more could be done in teaching indigenous knowledge, raising student-teacher engagement, and learning through experience. This led her to establishing the Himalayan Institute of Alternative Learning in Ladakh, where she has developed the university's curriculum to provide solutions to real-life problems, thereby benefiting the wider community. Ms. Geetanjali is a Chevening Fellow at the University of Oxford and a recipient of the prestigious Women Transforming India National Award presented by the Government of India. She will speak on the topic, Progressive and Equitable. How do we take both together hand in hand to make a sustainable society? Ms. Geetanjali, please.
Good morning, everybody. Namaste, or as we say in Ladakh, Jule. In 2019, when I was invited here to be the recipient of Sathya Sai Award for Human Excellence in Education, I did not know that I would become a part of this dynamic yet warm family, and that I would be addressing you all today in this conference. I'm indeed thankful for that, and consider it a privilege and an honor to be here with you. At the age of 10, I realized that half of my family was in the US or Canada, and that was the trajectory of most of the middle and higher middle class families in India. Something did not sit right with me, and luckily, it was the grace of the divine that came to me through a visit to Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Pondicherry, when I was 16, and a session on foundations of Indian culture that brought me face to face with the spiritual knowledge that India possesses and which it has to give to the world. That I was in the first row. I started weeping during that session, moved to the center, back, and I was out of the session room into the washroom because I couldn't contain my tears. It was not the country that I was studying in my history books. In the history books, we were always on the receiving end, invasion after invasion, colonialism. We seem to have done nothing great. Everything was done by either Pythagoras or Newton. But here in this session, India, right from its architecture to its educational practices, to its agriculture, there was a striving for that divinity, for that higher living, and we Indians had forgotten about it. So that little 16-year-old vowed to herself that she would not only learn herself about what true India is, not only introduce India to Indians, but also introduce them to the whole world. And as Rumi says, what you are seeking is seeking you. So I was given this sublime task of setting up this university in Ladakh based on these indigenous knowledges and practices, where higher education is not a passport to Dubai or UK or US. We tell our students that if after studying with us, you decide to leave your motherland, you will be our biggest failures. Unlike most universities that show how many of their students have been placed abroad. We tell our students that if you go back to your village and develop it, you are our star students. Because if you do a quick calculation, 50% of India is in the age group of 0 to 25. And if we look at this 25-year-olds would be in the next 25 years the working population. And if we look at the 7 lakh villages that India has and divide this number, you will find that given the right education, we will have 700 qualified professionals for each village. And I think that is more than enough to transform India one village at a time. And that is what should be the purpose of higher education. So as they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. And since I come from that part of India, which is Trans-Himalayan, which is at 13,000 feet above sea level, which is very unlike tropical India, I will take you through a picture journey in my presentation. And if we can start it. We start with this question that what is the purpose of education? Is it just to acquire skills to attain and achieve one's livelihood? Or is it social awareness for better citizenship? Or still, like Martin Luther King, is it intelligence and character? Or, as India has always held, is it a path of self-discovery? Intuitively, we feel it is all of the above. But somehow, the present higher education system is only focused on the first one. So what do we do to make it holistic? Now, let's say even the first one of skills to attain livelihood, we focus only on the supply side of livelihood, how to make more technology available, how to make more and more things available for comfort. Our industrial entire production is towards the supply side. But that's where India can contribute to regulate the demand side. As we have seen, US needs 7 Earths to fulfill its needs. We don't have it. So the Indic knowledge system says that regulating your desires. It's not more consumerism, not more products, but wanting less. Even economics says the marginal utility, the diminishing returns when we have more and more. So how about also training the students in not just creating more, but wanting less? Like the Buddha says, or the Indian system, the Sanathana Dharma says, that to conquer a desire is actually a bigger achievement than to fulfill one. So we therefore propose that there are 5 pillars to this higher education that can make it a sustainable society. We knew about the heart, the Industrial Revolution, which was about 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, was considered literacy. But it was not enough when we extended it to head, heart, and hands, because reading, writing, and arithmetic only pertain to the head. What about the compassionate heart and the skilled hands? And this was something India proposed 100 years ago. But what is the paradigm for the next 100 years was actually there thousands of years ago in Kena Upanishad, that while head is the adibhuta, the knowledge of material nature, head and heart is adidaiva, the relational nature. But what is missing in the education system today is adhyatma. And it has been spoken right from your convocation day till yesterday and today. The narrative of adhyatmic education has to be in the world education systems, and that is where India can contribute to the world. Now, what is this spiritual education we have been deliberating upon? It is knowing oneself, Swadharma, aligning that Swadharma to Yuga Dharma and the Sanatana Dharma. It is that interconnectedness. It is replacing competition with cooperation, replacing consumerism with control of desire, and all these things. In many of the global COP26 conferences, I say that this is India's contribution to achieving carbon neutral world. It's not we don't need trillions of dollars. We just need to learn to change our behaviors at an individual level. Now, this is Ladakh, northernmost part of India. And this is how it looks in summer. And it's plus 30 in summer and minus 30 in winters. It is glacial melt water that sustains it, very different from the rest of India. And I take the example of Ladakh to make this point that the diversity in India needs higher education to be not centralized but diverse. Because each region has its own set of problems, and the youth have to be empowered to take charge of their contexts and come up with solutions that are local and indigenous and not copy what is being done elsewhere. So contextual education is our second pillar of education, because if this is the university, I took this picture from the aircraft when I was taking off, and to think that a university would be set up here was scary. Not a drop of water, not a blade of grass, very different from how Bangalore looks. So how can the same curriculum be used and useful there? And therefore, the contextual curriculum proposes that 80% of our staple needs of food, clothing, and shelter should come locally. This whole globalization is a myth. It serves a few multinational companies, but it is not sustainable, as the COVID has shown us, that the entire supply chain is actually disrupted, So contextual education, and I take an example from what we do, in minus 30 winters, we need a home that does not need fossil fuels. So we have used earth architecture and passive solar technique to make homes that stay at plus 20 when it is minus 20 outside without any artificial heating. And this is not taught in any of the architecture schools in the country, even though 70% of rural India lives in earth homes. And earth is an abundant material. It is not like cement that needs to be bought. So this is the kind of education we have to have, and integrate the third pillar, which is indigenous wisdom. Now, if you go back 1500 years ago, this was a palace, the Saspol Palace, and it is a UNESCO heritage site. We say that these cement buildings are pakka buildings, and that's why people don't want to live in kacha homes, But this kacha palace has been there for 1500 years, whereas our pakka buildings don't last for more than 60 years. And when these buildings break down, cement buildings, it generates a lot of waste which cannot be used again, whereas the mud can be, again, you lift it up and make another building. So it is circular economy. It is regenerative that goes beyond sustainability. And these are and the youth who are in higher education should not be made to sit in classes. Because when we were hunter-gatherers, 11-year-olds would be with the parents running and catching their food, right? In agricultural societies, 8-year-olds would go with their parents to the farms. Now, why do we need 25-year-olds to be sitting in classrooms as passive listeners? They can be our partners to solve the problems of our context, and that is where higher education can play a role. So when we learn from our indigenous past, but are not stuck with it, but use modern technology and blend it, we can make buildings which are modern. And this is one of our buildings at our school, and it does not need any fossil fuel to be heated. So this is an example of how indigenous wisdom makes progressive and equitable, because the students who are trained in this, they are your partners. So the pedagogy is that we do not have classrooms. We have live projects. Our university is a blend of research, academics, and entrepreneurship. So we pilot, let us say, a certain technology, make it in our university, and then scale it up by proposing it to the government and army and now we have orders from the army, and those orders are being executed by our students in the field. And so instead of charging fees to them, we pay them internship, because they are young people who can be your partners in this enterprise. And that's how education becomes free and inclusive, because the students are not paying with money, but with their sweat and creativity. And neither are they doing it for free. They are not the beneficiaries, but they become your partners. And that's what gives them the confidence. And after they leave the education system, they don't need on-the-job training anymore, which is again a waste of 2 years. Because then what were you doing when you were studying in college? Here they are ready to start their own enterprises and initiatives. And this is how the research is actually completely scientifically done and proposed. But I will quickly move to how we change the narrative that earth buildings are not kacha homes, but we make high-end residences and resorts and train the students to become architects and builders, and the local communities thereby empowered to take care of their context, have their own champions, and change the narrative. And then we export this technology to now Afghanistan. UNDP wants to collaborate with us. So India, from being an importer of technology, becomes a net exporter of technology, because situated in our Swadharma, in our ethos and culture, we are coming up with innovative solutions and not copying it from the West or from the outside. So this is how the buildings are made, and they have become so aspirational that when our friends from Switzerland visit us, they want to stay in buildings like this. And I'm told that these are aspirational buildings for Hollywood actors and actresses in California, because these rammed earth buildings are not only what only the rich can afford there, but the richest of the rich. Whereas in India, we have manpower. Their labor is expensive. So what is something unaffordable there, here every villager can afford. That's the thing we need to train our young people in. And the fourth pillar of our education is it is experiential. As I said, each of our schools has a live lab where the students work in real-time problems. It is not case studies and projects, but real-life problems like greening the valleys, solving water problems through innovative solutions like ice stupas, which started in our village, but now it has gone on to greening many villages in Ladakh, including 23 villages. And again, this technology is being exported to Andes, Alps, and the whole of Central Asia as a water management solution. I'll quickly say how responsible tourism students help. In Ladakh, every day in summers, 5,000 tourists descend. And mostly it is the hotels in Leh that get the benefit, and the rest of Ladakh just suffers the pollution and the after effect of tourism. So our School of Tourism started this initiative, Himalayan Farm Stays, where every village home, which is so beautiful with a farm attached to it, is converted into a farm stay. The students of responsible tourism run these farm stays. The mothers are empowered. Their sons, who had left them to go to cities for jobs, come back because they see the mother is earning more money than them. And the tourist gets an inclusive and a very immersive experience, So it is a win-win for all, and it kickstarts the rural economy. And the beautiful homes is what is on offer to all the tourists who come there, and the hospitality is great. So we bring all this together, and that's the final pillar of our education, it is transdisciplinary. Somehow the Industrial Revolution made very specialist subjects and groups, but the reality is composite. For instance, climate change is not because of any one specialty, or not one specialty can solve it. So our approach is transdisciplinary, and we take up issues that need to be solved, and then we invite different disciplines who can solve it. Now, for instance, Kulum is a village that has been deserted because the canal which supplied water, because of climate change, the glaciers have receded, and people have locked their homes and become climate refugees in nearby villages. So they had to give up their large homes and lands and move to some small houses in the nearby village. And So we took up this challenge with our students that can we make it again a story of hope? Can it become a valley of flowers once again? And that's when 4 of our schools collaborated in a transdisciplinary way. The School of Ecology built the ice stupas, artificial glaciers, brought water into the village. The School of Plantation researched what trees can grow, what horticulture and fruits can grow. The School of Architecture, eco-responsive architecture, made the buildings, retrofitted them to become passive solar so that people don't have to leave it and go to Goa or Jammu or suffer in cold. And the School of Tourism has created Kulum as an eco-tourism destination for tourists to come and see how a village can be rehabilitated. And that is when subsistence agriculture, cash, everything. And last year, after 15 years, 1,300 kilos of potatoes were grown in this village. So most of the village is planning to now come back into their homes. And this will then be scaled up to a few more villages before handing it over to the government to use this methodology. So Hayal serves as a research hub which solves with the youth the problems of the local context, scales them up, and works with the communities and the government to take these solutions to the rest of Ladakh, India, and the world. The students are not charged fees, but they contribute with their creativity and hard work. And these are the 9 schools that we plan to have. And this is the educational pedagogy, which I quickly shared with you. The child is at the center. Adhibhuta is knowledge of the context that gives you material freedom. Adhidhaiva is working on solutions which are interdisciplinary, and that gives rise to social transformation. And Adhyatma is knowing, in this scheme of thing, where do I fit in? And what is it that how I can express myself, and that leads to personal transformation. And I'm happy to share that this educational pedagogy, which has been developed by me and my team, would be on display at the Victoria and Albert Museum, London, as a permanent display. Of how higher education can be more equitable, can be more progressive and socially relevant, and make students champions of the new world that we are trying to build. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Geetanjali. I think it really resonated with all of us here, that not only do we build on those indigenous systems of knowledge, but also take it back to our towns, villages, our local communities, and how we can improve those communities with that knowledge, which not only are we doing in our university, but also in our healthcare wing, where we're developing a medical college, which is going to train doctors and other healthcare professionals to serve the rural communities, which is really an underserved population of this country. We now have Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi. Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi is the Executive Director of the Karnataka State Higher Education Council. Prior to joining the council, he served as the Dean at the KLE Technological University in Hubli. Dr. Joshi is involved in practice and research in outcome-based education. Passionate about faculty development and institutional mentoring, Dr. Joshi has designed and conducted unique faculty development programs which have trained more than 3,000 faculty members on the practice of outcome-based education. As the Executive Director of the Karnataka State Higher Education Council, Dr. Joshi has involved himself in the implementation of the National Education Policy 2020 and international collaborations in the space of higher education. Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi will share his thoughts on instilling an ethical mindset amongst students. Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi, please.
Namaste. Geetanjali ji, I'm very happy to know the kind of innovations you are trying rooted in Indian values and traditions and our culture. I have learned a lot. Yesterday I was in one university as part of my job. We were trying to see the curriculum framework for designing learning experiences. And I was very happy the way young people who are in the space of higher education trying to make difference. Today I saw another perspective which is deeply rooted in Indian ecosystem, and the amazing clarity that you have brought into designing the framework and the originality in it. It deserves appreciation. I am humbled by your efforts. And I would like to engage with your system and then learn and then try and see how we can adapt it to the higher education space of Karnataka. So I'm here to share with you in a typical classroom context how ethics education is done in an undergraduate engineering degree program. This is some effort that we have been doing, and in my previous job, whatever we have done, I'm sharing with you. Actually, I teach computer science. In my earlier role, I was dean responsible for curriculum innovations and program assessment. For typical engineering education context, how did we attempt to build ethical mindset in students in the context of practicing engineering profession? That is the story of my presentation. This was done, so it is engineering ethics. We talk about engineering ethics, and for us, we have several dimensions in which we will have to function and then design learning experiences, so that in all those dimensions we address competencies. Our understanding ethics in the context of human interaction with fellow humans. Sustainability is in the context of interaction between human with the world. So that is the challenge for, should we have a micro view, isolated view? Yes, we need it, but then it has to be in the context of holistic understanding. So what did we do here? Okay, see, for us, what was the intrinsic motivation to design this particular module as part of a course was engineering is the profession in which knowledge of the mathematical and natural sciences gained by study, experience and practice is applied with judgment. So the moment you have judgment, here comes the case for ethics. Then we are also governed by accreditation agencies, where one of the components, one of the attributes, I have quoted ABET here because when we started designing this, in my system, we weren't having these things. Currently, India also has it. So applying ethical principles and committing to professional ethics is one of the graduate attributes. So we had to design learning experiences correspondingly. So this is the motivation behind designing this particular module. And what is the curriculum model that is available to teach ethics? When we saw, ethics can be taught as an individual, a single course as an isolated one, or it can be weaved across the curriculum. And we chose, in our context, as part of a course, we tried to build this. And the pedagogy, case study based approach, service learning approach, these are two pedagogies. In my context, we chose case study based approach, whereas in the context of Geetanjali ji, she has tried to situate it in experiential learning, that is service learning context, where children directly engage with the problems of the society and in that context they learn. Whereas the learning context in my case was created through case studies. One of the biggest challenge in assessment of ethics, we are all used to assessing, especially people from science background, it's very difficult for us to assess certain things which are not directly done. So ethics assessment was an issue. So we tried to see how to assess ethics. So there are several things available, several approaches available. So we used one of them. I am going to share with that. There's some problem with this, I suppose. I have listed what are the ways in which typical assessments are done. Essays, written assignments, design projects that solve societal problems, where people use their judgment to make certain decisions. And typical assessment tools that are used are DIT, that is a DIT and engineering science issues test. We used these things and then tried. Okay, let me just explain you the context of my course. This is a first year engineering course, a 3-credit course where students having made the choice of engineering, most of them, the decision to join engineering is taken either due to peer pressure or parental pressure. We believe that at first year level, if we help them understand what is this engineering all about, they find purpose for their stay on our campus during the remaining years of their studies, and then they develop motivation and then become better engineers. So correspondingly, we have written the course outcomes. Since we practice outcome-based education, our approach starts with, writing the course outcomes. I have listed the course outcomes here. One of the course outcomes, it is course outcome 4, analyzing, and the students should be able to analyze engineering solutions from ethical perspectives. So this is one of the course outcomes. At the end of the course, we expect students to be able to do this. So keeping this in mind, this particular 3 hours module, I'm sharing you the story of a typical one session of 3 hours. So the module is on by name Engineering Ethics. So end of this session, we expect our students to be able to summarize the importance of ethical code of conduct for engineering professionals, identify ethical issues and dilemmas which arise in their tasks related to engineering and apply moral theories and professional codes of conduct for resolving ethical dilemmas. If you look at this here, I would like to share our experience. Typically, we were taught ethics through stories. One of these known pedagogies as children, we were taught moral stories. That's how values were instilled in us, in our childhood. But then for us, the challenge was, how do we bring in ethics in the context of engineering profession? And is it enough to know, or we should even help them develop skills and offer them certain tools so that they are able to apply these things and they are capable of apply ethical behavior in the context of practicing engineering. So that was the challenge, and if you look at our outcomes, we work on that. So how did we do it? When we were doing it, COVID also hit us, and we believe in in-person experiences, but then COVID forced us, and then we had to go blended as well. So all our experiences, the knowledge part of it, we put in the form of videos and then try to engage people. But then I'm going to focus on this. How do we create learning context for our learners was one of the biggest challenge for ethics. How do we create learning context for ethics in a classroom setting was the biggest challenge. So our engineers, design is something which is very special to engineers. Engineers create. So when in this context of engineers creating, so there are several things engineers create. So we ask a question to children, what do you think are the intentional benefits and unintended consequences of the creation by engineers? This is one question we ask, and pose, tell them the role of an engineer there in that context, that the solutions provided by the engineers have intentional benefits. However, they also might have unintended consequences. So while engineers provide solutions to the society, they may sometimes raise moral implications as well. Today's artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, they have raised another level of discussions on ethical space. AI and ethics has become another hot topic of discussion. So for us, professionals must have both domain knowledge as well as they be aware of ethical guidelines for their profession. So that's how we build the context. So we engage these children through a case study. One of the most popular case study that is in Indian context we thought we should pick up was Bhopal gas tragedy. And then these children, we realized that these children were not born when this tragedy happened, these current students. So we had to tell them the story, and then after telling the story, we had to ask them certain questions to engage them in conversation where the context for ethics education is built. And then we help them arrive at right decisions. And then through this case study, we try to connect ethics in the life cycle activities of engineering profession. Typically engineers create following engineering design process, and this is the 5-stage engineering design process. So in each of these stages in their professional life, at whatever stage they are, they come across certain issues. So we tell them about those issues. What are the engineering tasks and what are the problems possible issues that arise there. Typically, when you are doing conceptual design, you may be blind to new concepts. There could be violation of patents or trade secrets. And sometimes products are used illegally. Like this, there are several engineering tasks that children, people perform. And in each of these situations, what are the possible issues that they come across? We tell them, then they get connected to the kind of possible issues where application of ethics is required. And then in that case, in that situation, we once again pose certain case studies. Popular ones we pick up, the ones that the Volkswagen case of, hiding the carbon emission was very popular during that time. So we picked up that particular case. We showed them this. And then, we asked them, these questions. Who is responsible for the issue? Who designed the system? Why do you think this issue occurred? What are the people? Who are the people affected by this issue? And what did company violate? So by asking these questions, the engaging questions, we help them connect to what they are supposed to be eventually doing. So in this context, once again, we connect them back to what is engineering, and tell them that this is a profession. And tell them, since we are addressing first-year students, they won't be knowing the difference between profession. We want them to understand that. So we help them understand what is profession and what is a non-profession. And then typically, what are the characteristics of profession? And in this context, we position various professionals, we show them, and then they are governed by code of ethics. All professionals are governed by code of ethics is something which we show. And then we also tell them the code of ethics for engineering, different disciplines of engineering. And what is the source of code of ethics? This is where we introduce common morality, personal ethics, and professional ethics. And the relationship between these things we speak. Because if I limit only to professional ethics, it does not connect. So professional ethics, personal ethics, and then common morality, how are they connected? We tell them. Then give them some scenarios. And then ask them once again engaging questions so that they are able to understand what are we talking with respect to common morality, personal ethics, and professional code of ethics. And this is where we introduce the code of ethics by professional societies. Then ask them, why do we need code of ethics? Then give some case studies and then introduce them to what is known as ethical dilemma. Once again, give them a case study. Then ask them how do they resolve ethical dilemma. In this context, ethical theories, moral tests, and code of ethics are introduced to the students. This is where we tell them about, while we display all these things, in our context, we have spoken more about utilitarianism, Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya. This is where, cost-benefit analysis, it appears Western, but then when we look at this inverted triangle, Tejet tekam kulasyarthe, gramasyarthe, kulam tejet, gramam janapadasyarthe, atmarthe, prithivim tejet. The whole austerity you know, it's all practiced that way. That's how it is communicated. This is what is told. I'm aware when I'm saying this, I'm aware the audience, but my target is my students in their age of 19, whom it's very difficult to hold their attention on conversations like this. But then, yes, it is possible for us to do it. So, and this is where, we speak to them once again through a set of case studies. We engage them, and, a typical class of 60 is broken into 4 teams. Each team will have one student, teacher, a teacher, and then they discuss the case studies. Then that's where, we introduce them to professional ethics and canons, we tell them, and how do we use these canons to resolve ethical dilemma is spoken. So that's how we do it. And we also do an assessment of this using assessment rubrics by giving them case studies. And this is an individual work that we give. And our observations, this is interesting for me. I'm coming to the end of my presentation. In this particular course, our understanding, our observations are from 9% of students who could successfully resolve an ethical dilemma, about 450 students I'm talking. Public safety is one case study, which most of the people who got that as their assessment test, they were able to get maximum marks. Whereas whenever we have case studies involving multiple perspectives, first-year students find it difficult to look from all perspectives. Tailoring the contents to achieve applicability for different disciplines, we need to really bother. We need to understand that. This is the least liked module by our students. In this particular course had 8 modules, and end of the semester when we took the feedback, this particular module was least liked by our students. And this is, this course is a dynamic course. Every year we change this course. We don't have textbook for this, and there is no written examinations term end. It's all it's all formative assessment. And even when this is so, this course underwent only one major revision. This particular module underwent only one major revision. All other remaining modules have undergone revisions. I hope you are able to understand what I'm, trying to say through these things. Even in my community, it's difficult for us to convince, by more and more people to innovate, try. And we continue to get limited by, our conventional understandings. So that is it from my side. What I have tried to I come from this very culture. Whatever you talk, I very much resonate. But then taking discussions to a classroom, engaging with students of higher education in the context of their learning, it really requires efforts. And then in that sense, I could see, Gitanjali ji, your holistic approach, where ethics is not taught expressly, but then it is interwoven. And the assessment also happens that way. Seems to be the best approach. I like it, but I also have challenges. In terms of buying people, it requires teamwork. It requires an ecosystem which understands, which believes in these values. But I am inspired by your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi, for sharing your perspective from as a faculty of engineering. And I think this conference has given us a platform for a lot of exchange of very interesting ideas, and hopefully we can integrate that into the, the system of higher education in the Karnataka state. Our final speaker for the session is Mr. B.N. Narasimhamurthy. Mr. B.N. Narasimhamurthy believes that spiritual education is the basis of integral education and has spent over 50 years dedicating his life in service of this educational mission led by Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba and now Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai. He is presently the Chancellor of the Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence, and as the Chief Mentor of the Sri Sathya Sai Lokaseva Gurukulam Group of Institutions, over 5,000 boys and girls are benefiting from this free values-based integral education across 27 campuses in the states of Karnataka and Telangana. We request Mr. B.N. Narasimhamurthy to touch upon the topic, a successive progression of responsibilities, individual, family, community, national, and global, and then to help round up the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Smriti Rekha ji, Geetanjali ji, Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi ji, for your very enlightening inputs as to how we can inculcate some moral and ethical content into higher education so that the students who pass out after higher education, they take some social responsibility to work for the welfare of society, welfare of the country, and welfare of the world in general. Very dear brothers and sisters, and students, boys and girls, when Dr. Gopal Krishna ji was speaking of engineering ethics, my mind went back to my days in the engineering college. Exactly 60 years ago, I joined the engineering college. 1962, in the month of June, I joined the engineering college, Bangalore Engineering College. Those days, nobody spoke to us about engineering ethics. Because ethics, those days, I feel, was more a part of the individual and public life. People were aware, intrinsically aware of the professional ethics of an engineer. Therefore, we were never ever taught about ethics and morality. Probably a course like this could have reinforced our convictions. And I'm very, very glad that all three of them spoke. Smriti Rekha ji spoke of Sanatana Dharma, and Geetanjali ji spoke about Adhyatma. And Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi, he quoted from Vidura Niti, Atmarte Prithivim Tejit. So it is very rarely on a platform where higher education is discussed. These words are spoken also. People are afraid of speaking these words. People are afraid of speaking of Sanatana Dharma on a platform where educationists discuss the dire need of the current scenario of higher education. Forget about other countries. In our own country, in India, which has been the home for the highest thoughts, I remember Romain Rolland, a French philosopher and writer. He has written to our students, I would like to tell them, he has written biography of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, one book, and biography of Swami Vivekananda. You have to read. Our boys and girls should read. Even others, my brothers and sisters, if you have not yet read, you have to read those books, study those books. Somewhere he writes in the biography of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he writes, if there is a place on the face of the earth which has been the home for the highest thoughts of all living men and women since the earliest times when man began the dream of existence, it is India, he said. See, he is not Swami Vivekananda. See, generally, a quotation like this will make us remember Swami Vivekananda. He was not born, this French, Romain Rolland was not born. Recently, with Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai, I had the opportunity to go to Pondicherry and visit two wonderful places. One is the Aurobindo Ashram itself, and then the Aroville, the Matrimandya. And someday I think I want to pray to Baba, pray to Sadguru Madhusudan Sai, that all of our students should see Aroville. I will pray, definitely I will pray on your behalf. What a creation. See, though it is a material creation, it doesn't look like a material creation. It is symbolic of the spiritual dimension of every man and woman. See, you look at it, it's like a globe, very interesting. In fact, Mother designed, she was an architect and an artist, she designed it. You have to, it's something very amazing also. When you go, it is an amazing feat of architecture, there is no doubt about it. But when you enter that place, you only remember the spirit, nothing of the material glory of that structure. And the second place in Pondicherry, Aurobindo Ashram itself. And as an exception, because of the presence of Sadguru Madhusudan Sai, we were permitted into the private chambers of Mahayogi Sri Aurobindo, where he lived and where he died. What happened there is relevant for higher education in our country. How is it relevant? Our students, boys and girls, know that Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai, and also many of our brothers and sisters who are devotees, know that Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai has been blessed by the divine to interact with the past masters. I still remember on a Shankara Jayanti day, Sadguru was speaking. I was sitting on his left side. He said at the beginning of the talk, his discourse, he said, I see Adi Shankara on my right and Swami Vivekananda on my left. He also said that both of them are confirming that the glory of our country can be revived only when we see the materialization of the vision of Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba to bring the immortal message of divinity. More than that, the oneness of man with the divinity, only then the heaven will come down to earth. And here, it is what I am saying is relevant. Don't think it is not relevant. I will come to that. Here there was an interaction in Aurobindo's room between Mahayogi Aurobindo and Sadguru Madhusudan Sai. He said, perfect balance between body and mind will open the door for higher consciousness. Perfect balance. See, the point is, generally people think dharma, Smriti Rekha ji so very lucidly spoke about the relevance of Sanatana Dharma in modern times. Because what she said, the distance that has been created by modern civilization between nature and man is suicidal for man. Nothing will happen to nature. In fact, here, I digress a little. When we were in California with Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai, after his discourse, he fielded many questions. One question was asked by a very young man. Swamiji, how can we save this planet with so much of damage happening to the biosphere and the natural environment? Sadhguru very boldly, correctly said, don't ask this question how we are going to save this planet. The question should be asked, how do you save man from extinction on the planet? See, that is the question you have to ask. Because the planet existed before man came onto this earth. And even after man disappears, the planet is going to continue. It knows how to preserve itself. He gave an example. Suppose say some dust settles on our shirt or sari. What do? We just tick it off, right? The planet will tick off man from his very existence. If planet or the nature, the mother nature, the Mahashakti, the Devi, if she finds that man violates her laws, if man becomes a danger to the existence of the planet, the mother earth, will tick man off. Therefore, the question should be, how do you save man? That is the question. See, planet is not man's creation. Man is planet's creation. Why it is relevant here is, Aurobindo also went on to say, now here I would like to quote his very famous Uttarpara speech, which he delivered on 30th of May 1909, after he was acquitted in the Alipur bomb case. He spoke about Indian education in that speech. First time he revealed his inner experiences, spiritual experiences to the world. First time declared. When he was in the jail, being arrested, accused of that Alipur bomb case where some 2 British women were killed. He was acquitted. See, our boys and girls should know this. Deshabandhu Chittaranjan Das, he argued for him in the court. He argued for him in the court. And he was acquitted. Once he came out, he spoke about his spiritual experiences in the jail. How Swami Vivekananda appeared and guided him. How he had the vision of the whole world as Vasudeva. Vasudevaha Sarvamidam. And there, in the speech he said, because by that time he had decided that he would disappear from the scene of the Indian freedom struggle. He had decided, already had decided, because that was the divine direction to him. In fact, within 1 year, he moved away from India, in the sense, British India, and went to French India, that is Pondicherry, and devoted himself for a different mission. So in this Uttarapara speech, he said this: India is going to win political freedom. There is no doubt about it. All of us know that India won political freedom on his birthday, 15th of August, 1947. It was his birthday. He was born in 1972 on 15th of August. But if India has to gain true freedom, freedom of the soul, one and the only way is to revive the ancient Gurukula system of education in our schools and colleges, he said it. Suppose today, see, British people colonized our mind. See, Muslim invaders might have destroyed our physical structures. Maybe they have converted some people, but British people colonized our mind. Still we are slaves. Therefore, he said, unless you revive the ancient Gurukula system of education, there is no way you are going to revive the ancient glory of India. And in a seed form, it is happening as a very serious experiment here, undertaken by Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai. Therefore, in this experiment, there is great hope, great optimism. Why? When she spoke of Sanatana Dharma, when she spoke of Adhyatma, when he quoted Atmarte Prithivim Tejit, for the sake of God realization, self-realization, you can give up the earth also. What a thought. I remembered a joke contextually. Once somebody asked George Bernard Shaw, the English writer, do you believe in ghosts? He said, I don't believe in ghosts, but I am afraid of them. Is it not the case with all of us? What is the context? I remembered that joke when they spoke. People, so-called educational policy makers, educational thought leaders, when they discuss and deliberate on the problems and solutions for higher education in India, they're afraid of speaking of spirituality. They want ethics, they want values, but they don't speak about spirituality. I would call it hypocrisy. Because all those policy makers and educational leaders have some kind of spirituality in their lives. Yes or no, sir? Everybody has, but they don't speak about it. The question is, if you ask these people, do you believe in spirituality? Yes, I believe in it, but I'm afraid of it. So that's what it is. Why? There is a reason. Reason is, religion has become a very dicey domain. But the fundamental mistake these people or many of us make is because we don't know difference between spirituality and religion. I would like to quote and complete this talk. The first quote Religion speaks from the mind. Spirituality speaks from the soul. Spirituality is the following the message. Religion is following the messenger. Second, I'll come to Mahatma Gandhi. The soul of all religions is same, only it is encased in different forms. I quote Swami Vivekananda. The essence of all religions is be pure and good and do good to others. Is it religion? See, this is the essence of spirituality. Why are you afraid of speaking? Because ethics and morality were absolutely unstable without a spiritual foundation. Yesterday I said, Swami Vivekananda said, men are moral because of policemen. How long? You have to be moral because of the policeman in your heart, the conscience. That can come only when you bring in spiritual dimension. See, finally, this is very, very important because the theme of this particular session is rights to responsibilities. When you pay and buy education, you will think that it is a right. Isn't it? When you invest money on something, you definitely expect returns. Those who buy education will be ready to sell themselves, forget about education, for money. Therefore, when the education is given free like in our ancient Gurukulas, it becomes your responsibility, not a right, because it's completely free of cost. Society has given it to you. See, that is what is happening with our boys and girls in our university. They get everything completely free of cost. Food, clothing, education, whatever they require. Therefore, they are socially responsible. You please talk to any one of them, especially postgraduates and graduates, girls and boys, talk to them. Look at their attitude in life. How did this happen? One is, definitely it is completely free education. Second is the presence of a master in Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai is the reason why they develop this social responsibility. Each and every one of them know after their graduation, they have to serve this society. Therefore, how do we replicate it on a larger scale? See, how can you give free education everywhere? See, that's a big question everybody will ask, especially policymakers. I would end with a suggestion which Sadguru Madhusudan Sai, when I was discussing this issue, he gave this solution. See, we are running this kind of institution because all of us know right kind of education given by right kind of teachers in the right environment alone can create the right kind of citizens. All of us know this. So there is right environment here because there is a spiritual master with us and who is very pragmatic, is very professional, who is a perfectionist. Therefore, what is happening? Our students naturally get inspired and they develop gratitude. And naturally, when you know that it is society which has paid for your education, it is absolutely natural, you are responsible for the welfare of this society. So in this context, how do we replicate it in the outside world? He gave a very beautiful model. The model of public-private model, and he calls it Sarkar, Samaj, Samstha model. What is it? When an experiment like this is undertaken by some courageous people, very courageous people can only undertake such experiments. Sadguru Madhusudan Sai took the decision to delink our school education from both Karnataka Education Board and Central Board. We said we will go to National Institute of Open Schooling. Who takes the decision? You see, one of the very very prestigious institutions, chain of institutions. And in fact, previous year, our Mandya campus had bagged the first rank in the whole state, scoring 625 out of 625 in 10th class board examination in the whole state. Next year, we took this distance. Next year, we took this decision. We are delinking from Karnataka board. People asked us, are you mad? You call us mad, but we call ourselves Mr. Courageous. Because we can't go under this if we want to do all that we want to do with our boys and girls. Therefore, if some courageous institution, courageous organization, some courageous leader, educational leader, undertakes an experiment like this, at least, which is a beacon of hope for the whole scenario of higher education in our country, the government, see, this is the public-private model. The government should provide infrastructure. The organization will provide inspired teachers, inspired educationists who will inspire the students. Education should be given free. Then who will bear the cost of education? The society, the corporates. You call corporate social responsibility, you call it anything. See, when this happens, free education can be given. But it requires very bold thinking, courageous thinking on the part of policymakers. Because without giving free education, you can't move from rights to responsibilities. When you pay money, you think it is your right. When you don't pay money, it becomes a responsibility. Easily it becomes a responsibility for you. At the same time, there are some subsidized education projects like IITs and IMMs. They give subsidized education. But subsidized education is neither here nor there. Because what happens, especially in IITs and IMMs, people who get in, they have to work very hard and compete with so many people. So they think it is an entitlement. I won this, though they are given subsidized education. And the saddest thing is how many graduates of IITs remain in India. Most of them go out of the country because there is no social responsibility. Therefore, the experiment that is being undertaken here by Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai is a beacon of hope. And it's my appeal to all brothers and sisters who are here, especially those who have given such enlightening inputs, how to improve our higher education. We have to speak about it. I'm not talking about speak about Sathya University, no. Let us speak. See, suppose today I am moral. I have some morality in my life. Is it not because of my faith in spirituality? Is it not because of my faith in God? If I don't believe in God, is it not because of my faith in the eternal spirit, which is at my core, inner core? But why do we not speak about it? Then how will you cultivate morality and social responsibility in students without telling how you really get it? And great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Swami Vivekananda, Aurobindo, all of them said this. All of them said this. All of them gave an educational philosophy which is founded on spirituality. Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba said, the soul of education is the education of the soul. If you look at our boys and girls and look at their character, look at their academic excellence, look at their social responsibility, it is rooted in their love for God in the form of Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba and Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai. What do you say, boys and girls? Thank you very much. Maybe I took about 5 minutes more. I would apologize to our compeers, organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think it's been a very enriching and meaningful session to hear from so many different academic leaders, but all of them very united in that root and that spiritual foundation that all of them have within them. And as we conclude the session, we would like to extend our gratitude for all of them for taking time to come here and share their thoughts and insights with us. I request Mr. B.N. Narasimurthy to please extend a token of our love and gratitude first to Mrs. Smriti. Also request him to extend a token of our love to Ms. Geetanjali.
I told Geetanjali ji, you have made us think that one day or the other we have to visit Ladakh
Yes.
by those beautiful presentations. Thank you. Oh yeah, better you say that.
I extend the invitation to all of you, the students especially.
And I did request Dr. Srikant Murthy to please extend a token of our love to Dr. Gopal Krishna Joshi. Before we close, we'd request you could have a group photo of all the wonderful people on the dais. Thank you.